So next, I want you to start to look at some of the stories that you might be telling yourselves that are holding you back in your life. I want you to think about some of these stories that come up for you on the day-to-day, right? And I want you to start to think about these, maybe write some of them down and go, actually, I do think that quite a bit. I'm going to share some with you to just give you some idea, but you might have others than this, and you can share them with me in the comments if you want to, or you can just keep them as notes for yourself. But there are stories and threads in our lives that can really start to dictate how the future looks, what it looks like, why it looks like that, all of those kinds of things. So just really important for us to know these stories, these threads in our lives, right? I'd love you to list 3 of them in your notebook. And again, some of these will be things that you go, oh, I actually think that. And maybe you'll come up with others that I haven't mentioned. So let's have a listen to some of the stories that come up in our life. Now, when I say stories, I don't mean we're making up stories. I mean, these are themes that come up in our lives a lot. So one is, I'm worried about being alone. I'm worried about being lonely. I'm worried about dying alone. A lot of people are really afraid of that. What about this story? There must be something wrong with me if I'm still single at my age. Another story is, how am I going to financially manage on my own? Like, there are a lot of you who are in your 50s and 60s who had an idea of where the world would be right now, and it's suddenly shifted, and now financially you may have had to go back out to work again. You may have had to re-look at what's going to happen in your future. Some of you may not be able to leave the family home and have to share it with an ex-partner. So fears about money are often quite strong, and the stories about, will I be able to actually financially manage my life on my own? What about this story? I'll never trust anybody ever again. I'm never dating again. I'm never going out there again. I don't want to be with anybody else. These can be very strong stories. Or, I'm not desirable or attractive like I used to be. You know, if we're in our 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, some of you, and you know, our bodies have changed. You know, I've had 4 kids. I had 4 cesareans. I can tell you, my breasts are down by my kneecaps. You know, I breastfed my kids. They're not perky like a 20-year-old, and nor should they be. My body is as born 4 children. I've grown humans inside of me. My body is different. So of course, you know, as we go through our 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, our bodies are going to change. That doesn't make us less desirable or less attractive. It makes us different. What about this? I'm running out of time to find a partner. Again, women who get to a certain age, there are quite a few of you in your 60s who really think that being 60 is too old. I have women in my membership who are in their 70s who are still out dating and doing very well, thank you very much. So please understand that it's a number. You know, 60, 70, it's a number. And to just give you some data for those of you who are in your 60s and 70s, you are the largest cohort of single women now globally, and the biggest dating pool of men in those age groups. So you actually have quite the pool of people to select from. What about this one? Who's going to take care of me when I get old? This is a really big one, I think, as we age, wondering about, you know, those are important things, right? Where we start to think about, my gosh, I'm getting older, having somebody there with me, that's really important. So those are really big fears for a lot of us. What about, I'm destined to be alone? You know what I mean? Maybe I'm just destined to always be by myself. And another one is, I don't know how to start over at my age. Again, this age stuff around, well, it's too late, or it's too hard, or I've never had to do it. I've seen some of you ladies talk to me about getting in relationships at 17 and being in your 50s and 60s and the relationship is end. You've never been alone. You have never been outside of that relationship. It's going to take some adjustment for you to begin to know how to move forward. Some of us have this cultural view, and I've seen this with some of the ladies who are a little younger or who have been in shorter term relationships, who are saying things like, well, not in these words, but my value diminishes when I'm not in a relationship. Being in a couple makes my life more valid in some way. And so for, you know, people who've had shorter relationships, being out of a relationship can feel like, well, now I'm just the third wheel. What about this one, which I've heard a lot in the last 24 hours? I don't think I can cope with this emotional pain. Like, I can't do it. It's too painful. Or I won't find somebody who really accepts me with all of my past and all of my baggage. And finally, Finding love now is more challenging than it has ever been. So all of those stories are incorrect, by the way. I've worked with women from 20, well, from younger than 20, I've worked with little kids too. Kids right through to people in their 80s and 90s who are living rich and meaningful lives in a way that works for them. And we're only limited by what we believe we are limited by. We can have the life we want, but we will have to work for it. It doesn't come in knocking at our front door, that's absolutely for sure. We create our own reality, and the things that we think actually expand and grow. And so we can get stuck in those thoughts, and that can really start, we have this thing in our psyche where we filter out information that doesn't fit with that thought, so we miss things. It's important for us to try and spread that a bit open and go, hang on a second, is that accurate? And it's important for us to do that because we build our own reality.